So the Chiefs have quietly gotten better in some key areas throughout the course of training camp, with a key rookie standing out early, a veteran ramping up to help a position of weakness from last season, and then they are surprisingly deep at another position group altogether that previously struggled with injuries. Combine that with Josh Simmons looking like the real deal, and you'll see why today's updates from training camp have the Chiefs trending up at just the right time. So I've got to talk about that, some injury updates, as well as a couple roster moves and more. But first, how about those? Alright, so day 15 of Chiefs training camp was a lighter, quicker 10-10-10 practice where they rotated between offense, defense, and special teams 10 minutes at a time to work on situational stuff as they prepare for preseason game numero dos, number 2. That game, by the way, is against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. And not only is the game this Friday evening, which is exciting, but it also starts at 9 p.m. Central. Maybe not as exciting. Yes, pretty late, so get your caffeine ready because it's gonna go into the morning hours. We then got some injury updates from Andy Reid today, and because of said injuries, the Chiefs added a new player to the 90-man roster. But before I get to that, we saw two pretty positive things happen at today's practice. The first thing was Rashee Rice, wide receiver 1, returned after missing the last 2 practices with a minor groin tweak. That's what Andy labeled it last week when he spoke to the media, but the truth behind those words would be revealed by Rashee Rice returning to camp practices sooner rather than later. Well, after missing 2 practices last week and being inactive in Saturday's preseason game, he was indeed seen back out there at practice, and if you watch this clip here, Rice flies behind the line pre-snap, catching a quick pass, seemingly unbothered, but then it's this clip here from Christian Ainsworth of Arrowhead Addict showing Rice cutting and sprinting downfield after catching a pass that it really seems like he's all good to go. Again, it was a lighter practice today, but Christian told me that Rice looked 100% out there today from his eyes, and that is a definite positive here. Fantastic news, and you never know, if things hold up, we might even see Rice out there with the starters this Friday against the Seattle Seahawks. In this upcoming game, by the way, we should see 2 series from Mahomes and the majority of the starters. That's what they've typically done in years prior. Meanwhile, game 3, the key starters typically don't dress out at all. So if you had to pick one preseason game to watch, this is where the starters will see the most playing time, so definitely tune in. Now, another positive development from practice is that cornerback Christian Fulton, who came off the PUP list late last week and was limited in Thursday's practice, was participating in teams today. You could even see him lurking in coverage on this red zone play here, picking Minshew off in the red zone via a pass he probably shouldn't have thrown, but still, the Chiefs signed Fulton to a 2-year, $20 million deal in the offseason. For a reason, he is going to help this room. Now, they didn't know he was going to need an offseason knee cleanup procedure done, but he's progressing and, in my opinion, trending to be able to play Week 1 of the regular season against the Chargers in Brazil. In a perfect world, he's physically ready to get some sort of snaps in during these preseason games, even if it's only the 3rd game where most starters don't play. Some live game reps, after all, to help shake off the cobwebs is better than none before the start of the season. Now, I have some more thoughts on the cornerback room for sure, but first, Andy Reid gave some more injury updates worth mentioning. Safety Deon Bush did officially tear his Achilles and will be getting surgery. A bummer for the soon-to-be 32-year-old veteran for sure. He's going to miss the rest of the season, and that's going to be tough to overcome at his age. Big Red also confirmed that Jaylen Watson does indeed have a concussion and is officially in the protocol. Meanwhile, offensive tackle Ethan Driscoll, who was inactive in Arizona, is healing up from needing his appendix removed. Then defensive end Janarius Robinson, who had the only sack on defense against the Cardinals, sadly suffered a foot fracture on his little toe. That was what Andy Reid said, literally on his little toe. I'm guessing his pinky toe, not sure. But because of that, the Chiefs did sign a new defensive end today, a very athletic guy that I'll talk about here in a bit. But there are some more injuries to talk through here first, because Andy also shared that both tight end Jake Brenningstool and wide receiver Hollywood Brown once again did not practice. Brenningstool's missed the last 11 practices, what seems to be a pretty serious hamstring injury to be out this long, and then Hollywood Brown has now missed the last 8 practices. With that said, though, Hollywood Brown seems to be making some progress. Coach Reid clarified to the media today that Hollywood is not dealing with a high ankle sprain. Instead, he said it's more the ankle foot area. Not really sure exactly what's going on. I just know this. He's making progress and is even running now, which is a positive, with Andy Reid saying, quote, "I don't think he's too far off, but we'll see. He's doing good, though." Well, I do think that's pretty good news, because the last injury update we got on Christian Fulton before he came off the PUP list was he's running again, so hopefully that means Hollywood is trending to be healthy at least by the season opener. The only bummer here is that with the key starters most likely not playing at all in that third preseason game, Hollywood missed some valuable time and reps to build upon his rapport with Patrick Mahomes, especially when you consider that Rice is probably going to start the season out suspended. So yeah, I would have loved if they could have worked more on their timing and built that rapport before week 1, but it's not like Hollywood wanted to be injured and missing all these practices, so it really just is what it is. On the subject of the wide receiver room though, Andy Reid thinks the depth in that room is going to make it tough on the coaching staff at the end of preseason come cutdown day. It's a good problem to have though, and they have a couple more games to evaluate the rest of the guys out there, and I still think the wide receiver room looks as follows to start the season. You'll have Rice not on the 53 because he'll be suspended and placed on the suspended reserve list. Then the other 6 on the 53 being Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Royals, Tyquan Thornton, and Nico Remigio. However, Jason Brownlee is right there in that mix, especially after high-pointing that touchdown pass from Mahomes, and he also caught a sliding pass later in the game that was ruled incomplete even after Andy Reid challenged it. I disagree with that call with every fiber of my being, but whatever, it's just a preseason game. Speaking of that game though, the Chiefs racked up 11 flags in total for a total of like 113 penalty yards. Of course, Andy Reid told the media today that was way too much and they have some things to clean up for sure, but there were still some good individual efforts from the young guys. He specifically mentioned the young guys on the left side of the offensive line, so Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia. He said Kingsley did a good job and they worked well together in the limited snaps that they were able to play together. Mike Caliendo, who worked in some along the interior today with the starters, coming in at left guard for Kingsley, while Jalen Moore still rotated in at right tackle with Jawan Taylor. Well, Andy Reid said Caliendo did well against the Cardinals also, but that was expected. They look at him like a starter, which he did do last year, getting some starts. That was good experience for him, and they have confidence that he can step in and play if needed. Robert Tonyan, the veteran tight end, led the pass catchers and receiving yards, and while Andy did say he still has things he can work on, like the run blocking aspect of things in the offense, Robert caught the ball well and had some big catches. He's been productive in the league, so he gets it. He's also been banged up the last couple of years, but he's healthy, and that's been working in his favor. Another tight end who's getting back to the speed of things is Jared Wiley, the Chiefs' 4th-round pick from the 2024 NFL Draft that sadly tore his ACL during a practice back in November. Well, he told the media today that injury was pretty tough to go through, calling it a humbling experience, but it's great to be back out there with the guys and playing the game that he loves. He feels pretty good overall from a health standpoint. It took him a couple drives last game to get back into the rhythm of the game, but that was expected given all the time he's missed. Training camp has helped him test the limits both mentally and physically, and the training staff has been awesome to help him get right. And you could just really tell he wants to keep building on that and have a great season and help his team win. He really hated missing out on time last year, but thinks this tight end room overall is a talented mix of both young guys and veterans. One young guy that impressed Coach Reid specifically was the 3rd-round pick, cornerback Nohl Williams, with Andy noting that he jumped out with some big physical plays on special teams as well as the defensive side of the ball. In fact, that was actually the only defensive player Andy Reid shouted out to the media today, so I think that is at least somewhat noteworthy. Nohl did have a PBU in the back of the end zone and some physical tackles on defense, as well as blew up one punt return in particular on special teams. He's still growing and has things to work on, but he was a definite bright spot on defense, and I think he really could find his way climbing up the defensive depth chart in the cornerback room as soon as he absorbs more of the playbook and can play a bit more freely out there. At today's practice, the secondary looked as follows with Fulton's return. Fulton worked in with the second-team defense, with Joshua Williams being the other guy on the outside. Meanwhile, with Jaylen Watson and the concussion protocol, you had Trent McDuffie and Nazeeh Johnson as the 2 top corners with the starters. Chamari Connor was in at safety with the ones as well, for what that's worth. But yeah, Nazeeh worked in with the ones, and that had some around Chiefs Kingdom concerned, but here's why you probably shouldn't be. There's nothing wrong with Nazeeh getting more reps under his belt. He's earned the coaching staff's trust over Joshua Williams. For whatever reason, Joshua Williams has fallen out of favor. That's been evident for the past couple of years now. But even with that, I think people are a bit too reactionary on Nazeeh because here in a few weeks, or maybe by week 3 or week 4 of the season, the cornerback room from a depth chart perspective will most likely look as follows. Trent McDuffie, Jaylen Watson, Christian Fulton, Nohl Williams, then Nazeeh, and maybe Christian Roland Wallace, who's actually been playing more at safety this year, but they still might have him listed as a corner. Could be your backup slot guy as well. Of course, that means Fulton needs to keep progressing with his knee, and Nohl Williams needs to continue soaking up the playbook and playing fast. But if Nazeeh is your cornerback 5 who mainly plays special teams and rotates in on a minimal basis on defense, I don't really see the problem. Nazeeh has been solid on special teams, even forcing a fumble on the second kickoff of the game against the Cardinals. They did recover, so it wasn't as noteworthy to the public. Sure, he probably shouldn't be one of the main guys out there on a regular basis, but this is the preseason. Give the guy some reps. I've seen several comments that say, Cole, Joshua Williams is clearly better and should get the reps over him, but that's just not what the coaching staff thinks, and they haven't thought that for a while now. With that being said, though, if the coaching staff wants to add a corner in free agency or claim a guy off waivers come cutdown day, or if Josh Williams decides to ball out the last couple weeks of preseason, he had a decent game. By the way, last week, he was the highest graded defender on the roster per PFF. That's all fine to me. They added both Fulton and Nohl Williams in the offseason, though, so overall, I think the cornerback room is definitely better than last year, and it's going to be in a pretty good spot, and I'm not overly concerned at this point in time. Cornerback Trent McDuffie, speaking of corners, spoke with Kay Adams today after practice, and she asked him how contract negotiations are going. He said there's been some talks, but he's leaving all of that to his agent. He trusts the guy a ton, and he's not worried about that. He just wants to play football. Will they actually get a deal done before the start of the season? It's tough to know because he's going to want and deserves top of market money. That makes things way more complex and is just going to take time. I personally think he's worth it, but even if they don't get something done prior to the season, he's still under contract for this year, last year of his rookie deal. They picked up his 5th-year option for the 2026 NFL season, and then they could franchise tag him for the 2027 NFL season. So it's not like they have to get something done in the next 3 weeks here, but the earlier they do, the quote-unquote cheaper McDuffie will be in the long run, even though if they pay him now, it's going to have to be in the realm of $30 million per year on average, i.e., top of market money right there with guys like Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner. Now, a guy with the first name of Gardner Minshew, told the media today that after his first game with the Chiefs, he's feeling good physically and honestly wanted to play even more snaps out there. Minshew broke his collarbone last year, which is why it's a little notable that he's feeling great even after taking a couple big hits on Saturday, and Minshew can't wait to get out there for game 2 and get even more good reps in. Another player who got some pretty notable reps in was the 5th-round rookie linebacker Jeffrey Bossa. His stock definitely went up after his performance against the Cardinals. Nick Bolton told the media today that Bossa is only getting better every single week. He's asking the right questions in meetings. His confidence continues to grow, and he's a very high IQ player. He loves learning, is super humble, and the future of Bossa is bright indeed, and he could even find himself out there at some point on defense if injuries hit the room, even though if they don't, he's going to be playing a lot of special teams. Linebacker Drew Tranquill didn't suit up last weekend as he's working back from a back issue, and Jack Cochran played quite a bit out there in his absence, and considering Cochran also forced the fumble on that opening kickoff, I think he's basically a lock to make this roster due to his versatility. Now, one guy who may not be making the roster, I mean, it's really too early to tell since he was just signed today and has a lot to learn, is KC's newest defensive end, Nate Matlack. And this was made possible because 2 spots were made available after safety Deon Bush and defensive end Janarius Robinson were both placed on reserve injured. Then they signed free agent defensive end Nate Matlack after a successful tryout. I believe he was around during Chiefs minicamp as well for a tryout or on a tryout basis, so he has some familiarity there, and he's a very athletic guy. 9.62 relative athletic score, great shuttle, 3-cone, 20-yard split, 6'4", a little undersized at 254, but a great vertical and broad jump as well. So he's super athletic, local guy out of Olathe. He played 3 years at K-State before one final year at Pitt to take on a full-time starting role. So all in all, he's had 14.5 sacks, 25 tackles for loss, and 48 solo tackles. He's a guy that's coming in to help fill out the depth here and get this team through some preseason games. But hey, if you ball out enough and show enough promise, maybe he could end up on the practice squad. I think it's going to be a tough room to crack, talking about the defensive end room on just a few days' notice before preseason game number 2. He's going to be getting brought up to speed. But hey, you are a defensive end. It's one of the quote-unquote easiest positions to learn quickly without having to go super in deep with schematics, because it's like, hey, go out there, rush the passer, show me what you got. Let me know your thoughts on a couple of these roster moves that were made. I think the Chiefs have one spot available to do something else if they want. Maybe it's some safety help with Deon Bush on IR. We'll see, because Roland Wallace has been working on at safety as well. But let me know your thoughts on that. And then the Chiefs really getting better, I think, at the cornerback room. Some people are concerned, but with Nohl Williams climbing the ranks, getting a shout out from Andy Reid, I think he is going to work his way into the rotation. With Christian Fulton getting healthy and off the pup and working with teams today, he's trending towards playing week 1. That cornerback room is going to be better, and that wide receiver room is very deep right now. I'm excited to see how it all pans out as preseason goes on. But let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below and how you are currently feeling about the Chiefs at this point in time. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?